You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again, one day at a time. Thanks for joining me. Hello, my amazing listeners. I am thrilled to have back with me my friend and colleague, Kimberly Day, who I asked to come and share her experience with second divorces. I know a lot of you have reached out asking me about this. I know a lot of you have felt a ton of shame for being on divorce number 2 or number 3. So I wanted to give voice to that. And Kim has such an empowered way of viewing herself in this space that I felt like it was worth having her come on to talk about her second divorce. I think that you will be able to feel her sense of empowerment as you listen to her. You are not your experiences. Who you are intrinsically are not the experiences that you have as a human. They can shape you. They can change the way that you think. They can change the way that you feel, the way that you show up in the world. They can change your circumstances, but they do not change that you are 100% of worth and value just as you are. So as usual with my colleagues, because we always jump right in and love to catch up and get to the good stuff, I hit record right away. And I'm glad I did because Kim started with some really good golden nuggets. I hope you enjoy this conversation. What are your main goals points that you feel like would be helpful and would want to share around being married twice, being divorced twice? Are there specific stigmas? Are there certain beliefs about yourself that come with that second one around? I know so many more women are in this space, feel even shame to talk about it, feel shame to even bring that up. So I guess I'm just curious for you, how you see this episode playing out.
Yeah, I'm open to being pretty fluid in hearing and having it. I always like that we just have a dialogue. Like it just evolves. I think for me, where I want to definitely get to, or maybe even start with is just changing the paradigm or the meaning around this is a failure. This is like there's something wrong with me. Like you talked about the stigmas, this means that the the first one, maybe people can give you grace because you're young and there's always a possibility you get a lemon. And then if it's second one, you have to look at patterns. I want to make that safer for women to really give themselves permission to look in a different way rather than what the hell is wrong with me, but really look at, okay, there is a lot of invaluable information in being willing to look, but you can't look if you're stuck in this paradigm of shame, of insufficiency, this paradigm of brokenness, or this paradigm of, our whole culture tends the lens we look at those who go through serial divorces. Like, what does that mean about that person? They keep failing at the most important thing in life. They suck. So I guess I want to challenge all of that and give an alternative way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit more, that's easier to stomach, at least for me.
Yeah. No, I like what you said there. You can't look at those patterns through the lens of shame. You're right. Whether it's a first or second, we still have to look at the patterns. But I guess starting off with, what do you feel like? Well, I guess we should officially start off like, hi, Kim.
Hi, Amie. It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining me, Kim. Oh, I love it. And this is why I love you, because I think every time we get on Zoom, we just can look at each other and be like, okay, what?
Like, okay, give me your update. Here's my update.
What's going on? Let me just dive in. Really, I'm glad that you were willing to come and talk with me to these ladies that I think can benefit, even if they are experiencing one life-saving divorce, but to have two. I know that some of my clients that are in these situations, some are at number 3. I love what you said right there before we officially even started. I'm going to leave all that in there because I love what you said. Looking at that through the lens that the world gives. when people have multiple divorces and how easy that is to adopt and to assume and then look at yourself that way. So hopefully we can meet that goal that you stated of lessening the shame, being able to look at this from a different perspective with more grace, more compassion, more understanding. I appreciate your willingness to come and share part of your story. And
Mhm.
with that, do you want to just give a little bit of your story?
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to. I think that would be helpful to give us some context to
Yeah.
talk about some of the principles. My name is Kim. I've been divorced twice. Hi.
I'm in life-saving divorce rehab.
I've been married twice and now I've been divorced twice. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. My first marriage, in a really quick nutshell, was one that was very well, it was defined a lot by my husband's sexual addiction and the acting out and all of the underlying things that went along with that. And luckily, and I do mean that literally, I mean, luckily it got so extreme very quickly that in some senses I like really didn't have an option. It was like run, retreat, flee, save your like, run for your life. It was, and I am truly grateful for that because I was not yet prepared as a person to do the hard work of knowing myself. I wouldn't have been capable of making the decision to divorce had it not been as extreme as it was. I'm really grateful for that, the extremity of that situation that made it easy. And it in some ways it made it easy also to not get as lost in the shame because I had such an extreme story. It was like, wasn't my fault, right? I had to.
Yeah,
And
I
yeah.
can relate to that. No, it's
Mhm,
true. He embezzled money from the company. We lost everything. Like those external things that can be more overtly seen that are
mhm.
extreme can definitely give more of that, I guess, motivation
Validation.
to
Mhm.
walk away with your head a little bit rather than
Preserve a tiny bit of
all
dignity. Yes.
great. Yeah. But
Yeah.
interesting.
So that was my first marriage and my first divorce. And I then oriented in dating towards avoiding what I had experienced, right? That makes
Mhm.
sense. I was like, okay, so I know what messes up a marriage now. So I know what I'm trying to avoid. I still didn't know what I actually wanted, but I just I wanted not that, right? I knew how to look for not that, and I found not that. I did. I was successful in finding not that. And my second marriage was very different. The challenges were very different. And in my second marriage, there wasn't like the chaos of overt abuse and acting out, and it wasn't that paradigm or that experience. There was a level of pretty extreme emotional neglect, a lack of connection, and a lack of willingness to engage with coming together and building a coupleship in our marriage. And that was something that I wanted, and it was something that he didn't. It's interesting. I learned so much, and I'm actually really grateful for my second marriage because I feel like I learned a ton. And I did in my first marriage too. And for me, as I look at these experiences, and I guess one of the things that I believe in that has helped me to change my point of reference as I've looked at my own life experiences is that relationships are designed to pressure our progression. They find where we can develop as a human being. They increase our capacity for love, to love well and to live well if you engage with them quite frankly, from a spiritual point of view. I think that's why we're here and why we are built to be drawn into these relationships. But especially when there's trauma, you're like, why the heck do I keep being pulled into this? Like, it's a trap, run. I've been
Yeah.
there, by the way. But the reality is, if you have two people, like as we're drawn together, that it grows us as people, even when it's bad. All relationships, they have the potential to help us to learn and grow, the good ones and the bad ones. Both of my marriages did that for me. Both of them blessed my life that way. they challenged me to learn and grow and to become stronger, become more self-aware, become more differentiated, become more clear about what is real and more capable of engaging with people and with reality. My second marriage, I did still do some of the same patterns of kind of people pleasing. It was really challenging for me in both marriages, but to bring up issues that I didn't believe that couldn't be resolved. I'm not saying that very well, but when there was a pattern of me trying to find a way to bring something to the table to work on, something I needed or something I wanted or something that I had a concern about or something about our relationship, and not having room to be seen or to be heard or to have that looked at or validated at all. I spent a lot of years thinking, okay, if I approached it this way, it would be different. If I did it this way, if I use softer words, okay, I can read that he's feeling threatened. I see the defensiveness. Okay, how do I manage his emotional experience enough to make it safe enough for him to hear me, to see me, to engage with me, to build a relationship with me? Maybe it's my arrogance, but I'm like, I can do that. Like, that shouldn't be so hard. I can figure out a way to do that. I hit a point in that relationship where it was clear that I couldn't do that and that I just needed to stand in myself and where I was. And I could do so lovingly, I could kindly, clearly, and repeatedly. And I needed to allow a space for him to choose, basically. For me to say, and I didn't do this perfectly, but I did my best. And I was pretty deliberate about what I was doing in that second marriage. Right at the end I was telling the truth. Like, this is where I'm at. Breaking it all down was like, I need things to change if I am going to stay. And I want to stay. And I'm really willing to do the work. And I'm really optimistic about both of our capacity to do it. But I can't make you choose. I can't make that choice for you. I can't stay if you don't choose. I needed him to choose to engage with me. I didn't need him to do what I wanted him to do. Like, I didn't need him to, I just needed him to engage for real, like without avoiding, without gaslighting. There was a lot of manipulation around avoiding the conversation, avoiding misdirecting, the invalidation that came through those kind of manipulation tactics of like, it's not real, everything's fine, you're overreact, whatever. All of that, which is emotional abuse, by the way. And it wasn't just that we had differences. There's one thing where you have differences of, and whenever you're in a relationship, you're going to have all sorts of differences, but differences of how much intimacy people want. One person may have a certain level that feels absolutely stifling to another. The person that wants the higher level feels like the other one is distant and aloof. And the person that wants the lower level of intimacy feels the higher level is like suffocating and like enmeshed. So it's not that there are differences. There's got to be a space to engage with those differences in a way that there's room for both perspectives and there's room for both to be seen and both needs to be expressed and for that to be respected. And that was what was missing. And the way to avoid that space I kept trying to create, there was a lot of tactics avoiding that. And so that's where it just had to come down to, I have to make my stand of like, this is my invitation. And it was weird because I had a visual image in my mind this time. This time was different for me because this one wasn't me running for my life going, oh, I have to run. I don't know what's happening. The house is on fire. All we could do is run. I was really blessed that I had that experience the first time because I needed that. This time I was stronger. This time I was clear about what I was doing and why. I'm really proud of myself for both my divorces. Like, I give myself a pat on the back. I've been divorced twice and I'm that much cooler because of that. But this one I'm proud of because I did it the way that I went about it doing it, I was proud of because it felt like I was telling the truth and I was exhibiting a level of courage that I hadn't before, because this is darn scary because you know it's not going to be received well and nobody likes conflict. I especially was highly conflict avoidant, and making those stances just increased the conflict that was not leading to resolution in any way. It was just snowballing. I I had this image of, in my mind, during this season that I kept repeating this invitation, engage with me, engage with this relationship, engage with this. I had this image of this woman that represented the relationship, or really she represented a part of me that was the relationship. I was outside of her and she was like near death. And I was doing CPR and I was trying to save her life. And I was really engaged in like the whole, like when you're trying to like chest compressions and breaths and CPR and like trying to keep her alive. I kept beckoning to my partner, like, come, let's save this. Let's save this. And I knew if he came, we could do it together.
Mm-hmm.
I also knew that if he didn't, I couldn't save her. I was going to do my darndest for as long as I could, knowing that at some point that would just expire. I had that visual and then I felt her die. It was a peaceful passing, and it was something that only I saw, something only I knew, but I knew. And then I was in this hard place of having to tell the truth. I had to go to my husband and say, I want a divorce. And that did not go over very well. That was a little bit ugly and messy. It was the truth. It was what was needed. That played out, and we got divorced. We went through that process, took almost 18 months. We're just on the other side of that now. And gratefully, things are calming down. I'm really grateful for that. So that's the quick summary of, my stories.
As I'm listening to you share, and just whether a woman is in her first or second or third, I do feel like there's so many questions that I imagine they have. I guess I first want to hold space for those that might not even know how to process or receive what you've been saying, and that I am proud of how I handled it, or I am grateful. Like, those words don't often get used. We don't often hear people use when we talk about divorce.
Oh, isn't that sad?
It is very
sad.
No,
it is really sad.
I think that's where I'm just like, I just want to slow that down for a minute and let that sink in, because you're not discounting the hard, you're not discounting the pain, the grief, and all of those other aspects that come with divorce, that come with abuse, that come with destructive behavior, with loss. You're not discounting any of that. But what I'm really getting from you as you share your story is the strength words, the empowered words. I mean, I named this podcast The Empowered Divorce. Like, I believe that through the really difficult, challenging, oh gosh, just god awful experiences that we have in these relationships when it's a life-saving divorce, that there can be a sense of empowerment that you find. And that's
Absolutely.
what I'm hearing you use a lot of those words. And I guess I wanted to highlight that and also validate how foreign that can sound to people when you don't hear women talk like this.
Yeah.
I just wanted to validate that. I also think that there is a lot of fear that women who are on round one, like first timers, hearing this, also I want to validate, like, see, this is why I'm never going to get married again. See, this is why I'm never going to do it twice again, because look, this could happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can.
Can we hold that space? Like, what would you say? What do you want to say to them? What
would I want to say to them right now? It's like, can we
really
be best friends? Because that's where I am. I'm like, I don't want to ever do this again. Like, I love being single. This is where I feel powerful. I get that. I'm there. I'm like, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And I want to clarify, to this point, and also clarify paradigm-wise, as we orient towards values, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that I want to be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying I don't believe in fighting for your marriage, or that marriage or family or these, like, that they're not important. In fact, this was a paradigm shift that was really helpful for me to give myself permission to own, was that I'm leaving because I believe in these things.
Yes.
It's not that I'm giving up on my values. It's not that I'm giving up on what I believe in. It's not that I'm giving up on my family, but I believe this is me and it's just mine. Like, anybody can have their own opinion about what the marriage should be, but I know what mine is. What a marriage is and what it isn't, for me, has very little to do with a legal piece of paper. I mean, that is an important part of it,
Mm-hmm.
But just having the legal paperwork that says you are married doesn't mean squat to me anymore. It doesn't mean anything. Like if there's not a substantial, if there's not a relationship underneath that, staying married to me, and again, this is just me, but that feels like an insult. So,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I believe in marriage. I
Yeah.
believe in marriage. And what for me that means is that there is a real relationship underneath that.
Yeah.
And that if that doesn't exist, you either figure out how to create it, you do your best, or you tell the truth.
I love what you're saying there. And this is why I think life-saving divorces are different from other divorces, is that when you are at that place where you can't live within your values and live in integrity in that relationship because the other person isn't sharing the same values, the other person isn't living in the shared relational values, then it limits your ability to live. It limits your ability to thrive. It limits your ability to function in that integrity space. And when you don't live in that space, that's when you and I both not only experience, but see in our clients how that starts to deteriorate their core self
Oh, yeah.
because they can't live.
Oh, in so many ways. I'm so glad you said that. Like on every level.
Yeah.
Every level physically. I mean, we watch them. We watch them physically, and they come. If your relationship is deteriorating you physically, emotionally, psychologically,
Mentally,
spiritually,
all of it.
it on every level, like when your marriage
Mhm.
is I don't like the word toxic, but when it's poisoning you in a sense of it's not enriching,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
facilitating. I look at it like the soil, right? If
uh-huh.
that's when that relationship is not facilitating your growth anymore, it's weeds, it's choking you, your roots. Like
Mhm.
it's not providing you what you have a right as a human in a relationship to have access to. If it's limiting you in that way, then you then have the God-given right to get out. And what I'm hearing you emulate and what you said, you said, I gave myself permission. And I love that, right? I don't think we give ourselves permission enough. Like, get that slip of paper and write it out. You've
I can
got
give
to give
myself permission
yourself
to. Yes.
permission to have the marriage that we want, that we believe is valuable and nutritious to our soul, to our bodies, to our minds, to our spirits that help us to thrive. And when it's not, you will eventually die.
It's amazing how often I hear that phrase and how I felt it. Like, this is killing me.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is killing me. We feel it.
Yeah.
We feel it. That when you feel that, ladies, cue into that. Like, okay, that probably means that I need to change something.
Yeah.
Now, I do believe like there is space to invite change before usually safety. I always say safety first. Sometimes that that
Stabilization. Yep.
yeah, if you invite the change and you have someone who doesn't want to make the change, here's the problem with the paradigm of you have to stay no matter what. Or that, and I hear this all the time too. You've probably heard this, that you can only leave if it's like at this threshold. Like you can
Uh-huh.
only leave, I hear this one all the time, if you're being abused or cheated on. Otherwise, you're a selfish idiot if you get divorced. Here's the problem with that paradigm. I understand the spirit of it, but if you have, like, as a human being, have needs, which we all do, that are not being met, that you're not allowed to communicate, or you're not allowed to feel, that are constantly being invalidated, and you are feeling that withering, that I'm choking, that you described, that I'm dying out, you need something from that other person. You're in a place of either having to try to coerce that other person into giving you what you need, which always ends badly
Mm-hmm.
because then you're in a power struggle with your partner about you have to give me this. No, I don't. Well, the reality is they don't. They don't have to give you anything. They don't. They don't have to give you kindness. They don't have to give you fidelity. They don't have to give you respect. They don't have to. You don't have to tolerate their lack of what they're giving you either.
Right.
That's what one of the things for me that shifted is I knew I couldn't make, well, really either of my husbands give me what I needed, see me or care about me or love me.
Is that what you mean earlier when you were talking about some of the things that you've gained from this and learned is the become more differentiated and more in reality? Is this kind of
This is
coinciding with
a
what you're
big part. Yeah, this is
saying
a
now?
good part of it.
That they aren't giving and choosing and they don't have to.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's because that's hard to accept because I hear a lot,
Yes.
"Steve, like, no, you should and you're supposed,"
Uh-huh. Yes.
you
Yes,
know?
of course. Because we have the paradigm of I can't leave a marriage and
Mhm.
I can't stay in one that you're cheating on me, lying to me, and abusing me. So therefore you have to change. The
Mhm.
reality is they don't have to change.
No.
And you don't have to stay. You don't have to tolerate that. You tell the truth. And for me, I knew, and just for me, I knew that if I stayed in that cycle that I'd been in for years with my second husband of wanting, asking, longing, pleading, begging, all of the bids for everything and just being threatened by that, not wanting or knowing how to do that, just shutting down, gaslighting me about that constantly over and over, that I would inevitably become resentful and bitter and I would lose all of the love that I had for him. I could already feel it happening. And
Mhm.
so for me, it was to preserve my ability to love.
Mm.
I needed to say this doesn't work. This isn't a marriage to me. And that's the reality. So we need to split. And I needed to figure out a way to engage with him. Even I initially did it with the intention of thinking, okay, I could love him better divorced from him than married, being completely cut off and falling into this resentful, bitter, angry cycle of please give to me. Nope. Please give to me. Nope. Please give to me. Nope. So I said, okay, that's his. He has every right to choose or to say, I don't want to give you what you're asking for, and you can't make me. Yep, you're right. I
Yeah.
can't. I'm not even going to try. I'm going to invite it, but I'm not going to force it. That was his choice. And
Yeah.
so then I made mine. And it
Mhm.
was hard. And I'm not as scared of that anymore.
Mhm.
Like it pressured my development. It made me cooler. Like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is why I'm super excited to be here as second time divorced. Like I'm finding there's like a club for us, Amie. We have like the second divorce club. Anyway.
I feel like there's listeners that are wanting probably screaming at the radio, but so I'm gonna try to put myself in their spot and say and ask the hard, maybe even painful, awkward question of, but Kim, what should you have done differently before in between the two marriages? Right? This
Uh-huh.
didn't happen. Like, because
I could have
and
prevented
I'm
it.
looking at my first timers, right? That are like, this is why I don't want to date. And this is why I don't want to do it because I don't want to do it again. So, what can I tell me, Kim? Tell me what to do so that this doesn't happen. Like, what should you have done?
Okay. Well, again, if you're saying that, let's be best friends. I'm there again. I'm like, now what does Kim need to learn? Obviously, still a lot. Kim has a lot to still learn. So true. It is. And
As
that's okay.
we all.
But I just want to celebrate the question because it's so good. Being in that space of what do I need to learn and change about me? Maybe not to prevent all suffering, although quite frankly, that's usually my question. I'm like, what do I need to change so I can prevent all future suffering of Kim in the future? So like I can't quite find that answer, but the willingness to be introspective about it. And the reality is there was a lot I could have, like, there was a lot of things that I missed. The leaving the first marriage, going into the second that I hadn't learned about myself yet. And that was okay because I learned a lot in the second marriage. It taught me a lot. But yeah, had I learned more about myself before that, there was something for me personally, there was something very familiar in a way that I didn't recognize about his lack of attunement and his detachment from me. Like it felt familiar and it felt safe because I had a history of like not having people see me or love me well. And so it didn't register exactly where it might have with others who knew what it felt like to be seen and loved well. I was much more focused on the outward. Let's make sure he's not a sex addict. Let's get confirmation that he's not a sex addict. Let's not marry a sex addict. Okay. I was focused on some of the outward things. And he has and still does. He's got a lot of great qualities. Like I saw those. I wasn't. So yeah, how do you prevent? There's a lot of, I mean, you listen to Amie's podcast, right? You go to therapy, you read your books, you challenge yourself to be introspective enough to say, what does this say about me? Now, this is the key, I think. It's really important to ask this question with a certain tone. It's a good thing we're doing this as a podcast and we're not reading it. There's the question of what the hell does this say about me that I'm divorced a second time? Like, what is wrong with me? If you ask that question of what is wrong with me from this self-depreciating shame place of I'm not enough, I can't figure out what's wrong with me and what's wrong, like I'm searching that out. The energy of that, the feeling behind that question, at least for me, and I think for most of us, there is a deep desire to feel like we're enough and that we're lovable. And so if we're approaching the question with kind of the assumption that we're not, like we're not going to get the answers we need. We're also going to be really avoidant of the answers in the deep work because we still want to be validated. We're going to look for evidence that says I'm not so bad. Guess what? You're not so bad. There's nothing wrong with you that you got divorced twice in the sense like fundamentally like now, if you ask the question with a different tone of like, what does this say about me? Interesting. It's a good question. Let me sit with that and just notice what comes up. Let's maybe ask people who know us. Let's read books and say, does this pattern that's being described teach me something about me?
Yeah.
That bears a lot more fruit because the reality is of us women that are in these serial relationships of like, there are patterns that come up and usually they have to do with how we allow ourselves to be treated and what love feels like and not knowing what love feels like and instead substituting being needed, being wanted, attached. And so we tend to find similar relationships that are fundamentally like, what's the word? Exploitative on some level. Yes, I was great at that. Now, very different between my two marriages. Like my two husbands wanted very different things, and one was relatively happy with what he got, which felt much better, and one absolutely hated what he got. But there were some patterns. And so learning what is it about me that makes me not recognize that, not value myself enough to feel that, recognize it, and avoid it. That doesn't mean that there was things, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you define what's wrong, but that just means that this was my work to do. This was my opportunity to grow. This is an opportunity for me to challenge myself and become stronger, more aware, and more capable of living and loving well. So those marriages, even though they failed, they helped me find those places for me that I don't know if I would have found if I was single. I can shore those up. I can build those up. I can learn from those.
What happens a lot in our relationships is that they do show us more of these different parts of ourselves. No, that's in any relationship, whether it is with a partner or a friend. I have just different friendships in my life where I can see that these parts come out when I'm with this person, or these parts come out when I'm with this person. So relationships between humans can show us more of who we are when we are vulnerable and have that intimacy. It's that into me see, right? Look at me. But if we're not looking at ourselves, if we're not looking and having that growth mindset throughout our life, not just in a relationship, but throughout our life, I think that's when we can get stuck in unhealthy patterns. But again, what I'm hearing you say is you are able to now look at the patterns that different parts of you have shown up in these relationships through a different lens rather than the lens of shame. I feel like that is such a powerful message right there because so many of our women who go through this are trying to figure out how not to repeat the pattern, how not to get into the same. I don't want to go through hurt again. I don't want to be harmed again. There's shame attached. There's a level of self-loathing attached.
Yes.
Fear attached. And
yes.
Yes, this is that empowered divorce. If you can shift to self-love, like what all you listeners are hearing from Kim, I hope you can really like get this sense of strength. And like, if you're not watching on YouTube, like she's patting herself on the back, like, yeah, I did this. That shift right there is going to help you see the patterns in yourself that perhaps keep repeating some unhealthy attraction. But you can't prevent another human being's behaviors. No matter how hard you try on your end, it is always a risk. Relationships are always a risk. What we're looking for is a healthy risk. If you can practice healthy, if you can, I say practice because there's no I'm healed and healthy and now I can. It is a practice, it is a journey. I think, Kim, that's what you're sharing in your story too. Is you learned a lot from your first, you learned a lot from your second, and you're going to keep learning along the way. And that is having a human experience, not letting the experiences that didn't work out the way we hoped or wanted define who we are intrinsically. They are separate. They are separate.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
And knowing you for as long as I have, it has been inspiring to see how you did this last one.
But yeah, you were. Amie got a front row seat.
We're very much like the word clarity and courage come to mind. And those were some of the characteristics of the higher self. But you had a lot of courage and clarity about what you wanted, about what you deserved, about what you had a right to. Then you had the courage to be honest and speak up.
Thank you.
Use that word a lot throughout this episode. And I think that's really important to be honest with yourself about what you really want in your relationship. I think that's beautiful. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on and sharing. Real quick, parting words. Any last thoughts?
Oh, just what's coming up for me was it was sure helpful to have good friends in that. I was like, and just an opportunity to express my gratitude for you because you were one of those that when it was hard, and I was like, I didn't feel alone. I appreciate that from you. And so you ladies, whether you're married or divorced or in the middle of that, having those friendships and those connections with healthy people, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. Thanks, Kim.
So thanks for being one for me.
Of course. I have such great friends and colleagues, and I just want to highlight this last part. You heard us sharing those sentiments with each other. I have recently had cause to pause and reflect on how different my life has been in this way since my divorce, and as I have surrounded myself with those who are emotionally regulated, more mature and authentic, willing to be vulnerable without defense. And when I happen to have a conversation with one who isn't regulated or more defensive and attacking, where I have to think so hard about what I'm saying in that conversation or what I shouldn't say and can't say, and wait, did I just get gaslit? Hold on, that feels manipulative. Wait, did they just cross the boundary? Oh my gosh, I feel crazy. Those types of people are becoming less and less in my life because the healthy feels so damn good. The more you can surround yourself with those who are giving you those emotionally corrective experiences and helping you to function in your space differently, then you are better able to spot unhealthy. You can more quickly see the difference in yourself when you become dysregulated. It will become part of what you allow in your life and what you don't. You get to choose who you allow in your life. You get to choose healthy, and you get to choose again and again and again because you can. Take care.